Does public speaking freak you out? I'm guessing that's a yes. But what if you spoke to a group of your ideal clients and it generated a cool $150,000 in new business and got you a full-page article in the Wall Street Journal? Would public speaking still freak you out? I'm guessing not. Today's guest owns a drone business, is not a professional public speaker, yet has made it his number one marketing strategy. And it's working an absolute treat. Before we launch into episode 417 of the Small Business Big Marketing Show, the Marketing Gold is made possible thanks to Prosper and Design Crowd. Design Crowd, I think you're going to love. It's the world's number one custom design marketplace where you get access to 550,000 designers for the perfect design every time, guaranteed. And you can get $100 off your brief at designcrowd.com/Timbo. And we're also made possible thanks to the good folk at Prosper. That's PROSPA. They're Australia's number one online lender to small businesses, offering fast turnaround loans up to $250,000. And you can check them out at prosper.com/you guessed it, Timbo.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Timbo Reid.
And welcome back to the Small Business Big Marketing Show, Australia's best business and marketing podcast, as announced at the Australian Podcast Awards just last week. I'm your host, Timbo Reid, man flu and all, but you, so much more importantly, are a motivated business owner ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it deserves to be. Big show today. It's always a big show, isn't it? James Rennie, the co-founder of Australian Unmanned Aerial Vehicles, shares his highly profitable public speaking strategy, which I absolutely love. Another motivated listener shares 4 marketing strategies that are working for her that she's learnt from this show. And in return, I give her a prize or 3. I've got to tell you, hang out for these. They are fantastic, fantastic ideas to get more customers. And I have a positive response, unlike the negative response I received a couple of weeks ago to the interview I did with Instagram superstars Stephanie and Laura. A positive response from a listener. As per usual, team, there is marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in.
Do you need a speaker for your next conference? Recommend Timbo to your event organiser. Or better still, book him. Tim Reid, that's reid.com.au.
Righto, where to start? What's this button do?
Come on down. It's Timbo's Monster Prize Draw.
Oh yes, indeedly doodly. This is a segment that I love, and I thought I'd bring it to the top of the show this week. It's time to reward a motivated listener for taking action, and here's how it works. If you haven't heard the Monster Prize Draw before, all you got to do is email me, tim@timreid.com.au, telling me an idea you've implemented from listening to this show, and importantly, what impact it's had on your business. If you can measure it, all the better. If I read it out on air, you'll receive a prize or 2 or 3 and go into the draw to win a hot lap in a Porsche with past guest and race car driver Steve Richards, and that's valued at $2,500. I'll award that to the best email at the end of the year. All prizes, by the way, are donated by past guests. So that's how you do it. So let's find out who today's motivated listener and winner is. And I think you're going to love this. It is Lindsay Marsh. Lindsay has a business called sewtogrow.com.au where she sells sewing patterns, tutorial videos and workshops. And I tell you what, she is a marketing genius. She says, "Hi, Tim. Hi, Lindsay. I started Sew to Grow a little over 4 years ago, and I literally felt like you were guiding and holding my hand every single step of the way. That's nice. I started listening to your podcast before I left my job. Yeah, Cubicle Escapee. You not only gave me the confidence to leave full-time secure, in quotes, employment, yeah, right, like secure employment is working for the man, not, to start my own dream business, but also laid the groundworks for how I was going to be able to support myself and grow this passion into a sustainable business. Here are just a few of the many lessons I learned from your show and implemented into growing my business. Okay, here we go. Number 1, the importance of the email list. Lindsay says, I always undervalued the resource and constant contact with my customers. After hearing one of your episodes, I went straight home and put a newsletter opt-in on my website. That's smart. Not only have I significantly grown my email list over the years, but when I launch a new product, I instantly have a large amount of sales from people who love my products. Ka-ching! Next idea, helpful marketing. After listening to many of your episodes regarding helpful marketing, I decided to start a YouTube channel. Now, the first couple of videos I produced are so hilariously bad, but as you always say, don't wait for perfection, just do it. So I did it. Now I am able to refer my customers to my videos and help supplement my products. I have made some side income from having videos on multiple teaching forums online. Brilliant. And I also have been invited to film, how's this, a TV episode in the US after a company saw my products and ability to present through my YouTube channel. Oh, that's genius. That's the boomerang effect in action right there, Lindsay. Next idea, just friggin' do it, JFDI. After listening to episode 251 with Michelle Bridges, I had an absolute light bulb moment. I now say this to myself all the time. I used to be a real perfectionist and would not move forward with anything until I felt it was absolutely perfect. It was crippling to growth and forward momentum for my small one-man show. Once I took on this mantra, doors really started opening. I now have distributors in New Zealand, US, France, Canada, Europe, and Australia. I get paid to travel all over Australia and abroad to teach my classes. And to think I could still be faffing around trying to get my website perfect. So true. JFDI. And the last idea Lindsay shares is outsourcing. What a relief to realise I don't have to do it all myself. Once I grew my business to a place where I was making consistent income and was travelling way too much to continue doing all parts of the business, I sat down and wrote out what I personally have to do to drive the business forward and what things I could outsource. And how's this? I now have an operations manager that does all the ordering, folding, shipping of products. She also makes samples, tests new patterns, and creates social media content. It's like I've literally cloned myself, and the feeling is so good. I can now focus more on the things I enjoy and what makes the business money, which is what smart business owners do, right? Do what you're best at, delegate or delete the rest. Lindsay finishes, gosh, Tim, there is so much more. I feel like I could write a book and not cover everything that your valuable resources taught me. I can't thank you enough for all that you do. My pleasure, Lindsay. I honestly don't believe I would be where I am at the moment without all the marketing gold you have given me over the years. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Lindsay, that's brilliant. I mean, you've made my day, made my week. The fact that you are implementing is everything. Listening's one thing. Enjoying the show is another. Implementing is everything, and that's the spirit behind the Monster Prize Draw. Love hearing that. For your trouble, Lindsay, of sharing that, here's some prizes: a double pass to the Amex Lounge at Sydney or Melbourne's International Airport, valued at $66. A backlink on the smallbusinessbigmarketing.com website. Priceless, and a Hunting for George $100 voucher from Lucy and Joe, past guests from that wonderful online interior design homewares business. So hope you enjoy that, Lindsay. Thank you so much for sharing those great ideas. Everyone else, tell me what's working for you. Send me an email, tim@timreid.com.au. Coming up next, business owner James Rennie shares a highly profitable conference speaking strategy that I think you are going to love, even if you don't like public speaking. But first, if you need some marketing materials designed but don't have a huge budget, check these guys out. Cheap, quick, great.
I used to work with a designer who'd force me to choose two of those three options whenever I wanted something designed. As a small business owner with limited funds, it drove me nuts that I could never have all three. That's why I love Design Crowd. You see, Design Crowd is a website that helps startups, small businesses and marketers outsource custom design, from logos and business cards to websites and landing pages. In fact, Design Crowd gives you access to over 550,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco, ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. Here's how it works. You post a brief describing your design need. Within hours, you'll receive your first design, and over the next 3 to 10 days, a typical project will receive 60 to 100 different designs from designers around the world. You then pick your favourite, make any changes, and pay the designer. You know, whether you're an entrepreneur looking to set up your brand or an established business that needs marketing collateral designed, Design Crowd is your answer. For a special $100 VIP listener offer, go to designcrowd.com/Timbo or enter the discount code Timbo when posting a project. See? Now you can have cheap, quick and great design thanks to Design Crowd.
You know, one of the things I love about producing this show for you each week is the variety of marketing strategies my guests share to attract and retain more of the right types of clients. Now, over the past 400 plus episodes, we've covered everything from viral videos to self-publishing to social media to joint ventures to guerrilla marketing and hundreds of other clever marketing plays. And just when you think you've covered everything, up pops another one, which we haven't covered. Today's guest, James Rennie, is the co-founder of high-tech drone business Australian Unmanned Aerial Vehicles. And whilst he's not a professional speaker, he makes a mozza from speaking at conferences. You see, 5 years ago, he and his business partner Andrew founded one of the first drone service businesses in Australia. At the time, their marketing was focused around explaining what a drone was and what could be done with one. Here's the kicker though. They then realised that as pioneers in a new industry, they needed to be seen as the authorities and set out on the conference speaking circuit as their primary form of direct marketing. They spoke at 27 conferences last year for industries as diverse as landfill, forestry, power, refrigeration, just to name a few. So I would suggest having your pen and paper at the ready. As I said, if you don't like public speaking, that's cool. Just hear what James has to say because he explains exactly how he does it and what it's led to in his business. I started off by asking him if he was just a big kid who turned his love of flying drones into a business.
I started off as a relatively small kid flying drones way back when, and then sort of left it alone for a long time, and then saw an opportunity about 5.5 years ago
to turn your toy obsession into a business. How long ago? Mate, I thought drones had only been around for, I don't know, I'm going to say 5 years. Clearly not.
Pretty much. That was there was a lot of experimentation going along prior to that, but in terms of commercialization, 5 years ago is kind of when it started to kick off. So I think there were about 20 to 30 companies in Australia specialising in drones at that time.
Aha. Well, I know the competition's heated up. We'll talk about that in a minute. But by trade, I understand you're a natural resource scientist who's worked for government, worked for big business. So what made you decided to go out and start your own business in drone technology?
Really it was around data. So looking at the type of data that my clients were using, sort of back then, so aerial photography, aerial surveys, LiDAR and those sorts of things, I could see that drones could fulfill basically the same service for my existing clients. So had a bit of a leg up in terms of having a client base there ready to go with a new service.
Were you sick of corporate?
I wasn't that I was sick of corporate. I'd just been doing roughly the same thing for about 17 years. And I just thought that, it was time for a change and time for a new thing.
Had you run a small business before, or was this the first foray into it?
No, this was the first foray. So I'd worked within large businesses and small to medium businesses, but this was my first jump into doing my own thing.
And how'd that go?
It was all or nothing. So I went into it basically with a view that I would throw absolutely everything into it and sort of burn all the bridges behind me.
Good on you.
It was an entertaining exercise. It's had many ups and downs. Let's put it that way.
Let me just understand that, because I mean that's so you pretty much said, okay, no parachute here. We're going to jump, because you do have a partner in Andrew.
Yes.
We're all in. This is not something we're going to test the waters and then if it fails, crawl back to our comfy corporate suites. We're all in.
No, this was 100% all in. It had to work. So, and I think, as you say, not taking that parachute with you gives you, let's say, it gives you focus. So you don't want to deviate from your path. Let's put it that way.
It's interesting. I've spoken and read a few times about the idea of not having a plan B, because a plan B. In fact, you often hear it on that show Shark Tank, where it's like, there's no plan B. Right, just you're all in, and it kind of gives you a very different perspective as to how you approach the business.
Yeah, absolutely. I basically, for the first few years, started every week, if a week had ended, with a very focused, where's my revenue for this week coming from? So I'd set myself a target, and that target was an ongoing rolling target, and every week I would start the week with, I need to make this revenue this week. Where's it going to come from this week? And if it wasn't coming from somewhere, I knew I had work to do.
It's a very different approach to imagine what you had when you were working for government or corporate, which was, you had a job to do. Sure, you had to bring in revenue, but you were really there to manage clients and whatever you were doing in that corporate role. So it must have been a very different mind shift to have to then worry about, bills and money and cash flow and all those horrible things.
Well, that was the other thing is working in a large business and then jumping into a small business. There are a whole world of hidden backroom things that are undertaken in a large business that you are not familiar with day-to-day. You're familiar with them from a reporting perspective, but having to actually engage and do them every day, that was a bit of a learning experience as well, but one that was quite rewarding, actually. It was good.
Now, I fell into the trap when you first approached me of going, this is a drone photography business. And when I said that to you, you very quickly said, we are not a drone photography business. What do you say to people when they say, when they ask, what do you do?
My first thing is I respond with, we don't do real estate. So, which is pretty much what everyone says. Oh, you're drone photography. You must be doing real estate photography. It's like, no. We did one real estate photography job once, and that's over 5 years. So we do data, and we're basically a data business that happens to fly drones to collect our data.
So what do you mean? Give me an example.
Drone surveys. So we can 3D model sites. We do a lot of work with the landfill sector, landfills, quarries, mines, land developers. We can fly a site and develop a 3D model of the terrain, generate contours, work out compaction rates. It's really about that, getting an insight into a property and using drone data as an effective and cheap tool to collect that data.
Okay, that's vastly different to going up and taking a nice shot of a home from the 500 feet up, which I imagine there's just a whole lot of businesses doing, and it's a race to the bottom from a price point of view.
That's it. The businesses, as I mentioned earlier, was around about 20, 30-ish when we started up. At last count, when I had a look, there were about 1,700 businesses registered with CASA, and on top of that, there's about another 6,000 doing it without formal operation certificates. So that's like a sub 2 kilo class. So we're looking at around about 10,000 people in the industry at the moment.
So you said to me in an email, it's been a roller coaster ride navigating the competition.
Yes.
In what way?
As you sort of alluded to, there's a lot of price pressure in there. Mm-hmm. So it's really about finding our niche and being able to value add to clients to demonstrate that we're doing something beyond doing that simple photography. Because pretty much anybody, I often say that my kids can fly drones. They just can't do it in a way that's safe and collect reasonable data.
So you then took it on yourself to say, okay, well, this is a very, very competitive industry. It's probably going to get a whole lot more competitive as the technology becomes more accessible, cheaper, better. So you said we're going to have to position ourselves as the authorities in Australia, which I love that thinking, like many small business owners don't necessarily think like that. Where did that thinking come from? You can say from my podcast, but you don't have to.
from your podcast, obviously. A lot of it came from working in a position that in a previous role where we had an incredibly strong competitor who did that very well. So I was really learning from my old competition, who bizarrely were actually also my old colleagues at some point in the long distant past. They did their job in marketing very, very well and established themselves as the absolute number one in the competition. So the idea there being that when a client is going out to say, okay, we have to get 3 competitive quotes. Well, obviously there's Australian UAV. Now who else is there? And really it was using that mentality to say, we want to be the one on the front of the list, and then who else is making up the competition. So to position ourselves in that, we made a very concerted effort to work in the conferences side, basically get into the conferences circuit. And in going out and presenting at conferences, you're seen as the market's expert. So the market leader, the market expert, the one who's actually imparting that knowledge. And that's been a very successful method for us in generating work.
See, I think this is genius. I mean, I speak at a lot of conferences, probably 50 or 60 a year, and I see the power of speaking from stage. I mean, I'm a paid speaker, so I don't go up there and sell my wares. I share knowledge. But, you know, boy, oh boy, don't you agree that there's this weird line between the edge of the stage and the audience, and then when you cross that line as a speaker and you're in front of a group of people, rightly or wrongly, you are positioned as the authority.
Absolutely, and it's an interesting place to be. But I think just looping back on what you just said there about imparting knowledge, not selling your wares, we're very cognizant of not being there selling our wares. We're really trying to educate the people within that audience as to what drone technology can actually achieve, not what we can achieve. So we're selling the industry as a whole, but being there representing Australian UAV.
Let's break this down, because I really want my listeners to get an understanding of this conference strategy. Now, public speaking freaks out a lot of people. Weirdly, there's some, I don't know whether it's research or urban myth, but it is said that 9 out of 10 people would rather be in the coffin at a funeral than reading the eulogy, which kind of, that's weird. But it can be scary, public speaking, but let's break it down. So first and foremost, you've identified conferences across a variety of industries, because you appeal to so many different industries and can work in so many different industries. You've identified those conferences. First, how do you identify conferences to speak at?
Well, we get invited to quite a lot.
Well, you do now.
We do now, yes. So we identify them based on our core business areas. So, for example, I've presented, and Andrew as well, my business partner, has presented to mining conferences, quarrying conferences, landfill conferences. Last week, I was at the Refrigeration and Building Services Conference in Sydney.
That would have been a hoot.
Oh, it was an amazing event, and I would love to go back.
Probably gave you the cold shoulder, did they?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the aircon didn't work to start off with. Quite amusing. We've also presented at the forestry conferences, so it's really finding our core areas of business, whether that's asset inspection or whether it's that sort of service delivery and counting trees and 3D volume analysis.
Okay. So you get online, you identify all the industries that are having conferences in the coming 12 months. That's fine. But then how do you get accepted as a speaker? Explain your approach, your pitch.
Yeah, you sort of explain the pitch. So you talk about, where the technology's at, how it's progressing.
Well, hang on. No. I actually mean, how do you get yourself on a stage at a conference?
No, exactly that. So you're basically pitching it. Obviously, lots of them will actually ask you for a summary of what you would like to present before you start to get invited. So the more technical conferences in particular, you'll need a full abstract before you're invited to go on. But others, the more trade show ones, they're just interested in the technology. And I think that's where we've been quite lucky, is it's new technology and it's quite sparkly. So they like having that sort of new and interesting topic. So it's actually quite easy to get this topic into various conferences, whereas it's probably more difficult to get in, sort of your run-of-the-mill not new technologies which have been around for some time.
Sure. So do you, on a lot of conference websites, there is often a speaker button or, submit to be a speaker. Is that what you're doing? You're literally going in cold and sending off an email through their website?
Occasionally we'll do that. As I say, often we'll just get invited anyway. So I think we weren't quite up to your number of conferences last year, but probably about 27, I think it was.
That's fantastic.
So often we'll get the approach from the organisation, whether it's one that we've had come across before. Often our clients will put our name forward as well. So our clients might be on the organisation committee or associated with the association as such, and they'll put us forward as well. So it comes from various different angles, and there are some which we've just been back to year after year. So the Forestry Conference, for example, spoke at that one 4 years ago, and have spoken to it each year subsequently.
How good is that? So I need you to take yourself back to before you did 27 conferences last year, but when you're starting out, because, okay, it's all very well to put yourself forward as a speaker. In my experience, most people who are booking me or other professional speakers want to see a show reel, to make sure that it's all very well. There's one thing to have industry knowledge, product knowledge. There's another thing to be able to share that in a way that's compelling and interesting to a group of people who have been sitting in a room all day, possibly for 2 or 3 days. So then how do you need to sell yourself as someone who can actually speak from stage?
I think at the beginning you need to, but after a little while, word sort of gets around. The conference organising circuit it's a relatively small industry. So, and they know each other, and word gets about, and so, if you get a bit of a reputation that you speak at conferences, so that feeds into more conference speaking.
Yeah, okay. Have you done any work on yourself as a speaker?
Little bits and pieces, but not really. I used to speak at conferences in my previous life as well, so presenting on waterway management or various other technical scientific conferences. So I've had a reasonable amount of experience in the space already.
What kind of speaker are you? Are you more a storyteller? Are you one who just states the facts?
No, there's partly storyteller and partly storyteller, partly fact. But I think if you're looking in terms of what style of presentation, it's very much a not read the points style. So very little text on the screen, very much a talking about being excited and invigorated by the data that you can actually get out. So it's really about working through that process and working through what the deliverables are and what this can actually do for a particular industry, and some of the learnings from that. And we'll happily talk about various how much does it cost to set up your own drone service thing if some companies wanting to do it internally. So we're really selling, and myself and Andrew are similar in this respect. We're selling the industry, not ourselves. It just happens that we are in the industry and would like to do the work for them, but there are many other people in the audience who might just want to go out and do it for themselves, and we'll provide them with enough information to do that as well.
Oh, that's interesting. So you've happily taken it on yourselves to build the category, to build the industry, in the hope that, in doing so, people will choose AUAV as their preferred supplier.
That's right. Yeah,
Good on you.
It's really building the industry, not building ourselves.
What's your mindset around that? Just tell me a little bit more. I mean, some would listen to that and go, well, that's costing me time and money as a business owner. Why would I do that when potentially I do a great job at building the industry and they go elsewhere?
That is a risk, but it's also, people don't like to be sold to. They don't like to sit in an audience or sit in a conference and just have somebody say, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, because they'll switch off. And if they're not taking some information away from there, which will actually help them in their day-to-day life and their workspace, if they just feel that they're just being pressured into a particular service provider, I think that's a less effective tool than actually selling the whole industry. And then they can make their own decision afterwards as to which direction they want to go.
Absolutely. Well, these are all leading questions because it's sort of like one conference speaker to the other. But I'm interested in your take on things. And you're right. I mean, this all comes back to this concept that I talk about until I'm blue in the face, which is being helpful. It's like someone has to be the most helpful in your industry. It may as well be you.
Absolutely. And we're happy to sort of give out our knowledge to whoever will listen. We've got ourselves in a position now where if something happens with the drone industry, so there's legislation change or someone does something stupid like try and fly into an aeroplane, we get media contacting us now as effectively the de facto spokes organisation.
Wow.
So we've often fielded phone calls from the ABC and various other, the Age and the Australian. We've had 2 full-page articles in the Australian.
Hold that thought, because I want to come to that. You've had some incredible media coverage both here and overseas in one of the biggest newspapers in the world. I want to come to that. But just to finish on the conference thing, James, is so you incredibly helpful. You're building the industry in the hope that people will come to you. You're sharing your knowledge openly and freely, not concerned that you're giving away your IP. And all this is leading back to you becoming an authority in your industry, a preferred supplier, a media darling, if I could use that term. Tell me, what percentage of the conferences that you speak at are paid?
None.
Absolutely none.
Absolutely none. No, it's all time that we're giving for free in that regard.
So do you then say, because if I do, to me, if someone wants you to speak free from stage, of which I don't do a lot of that, but there's got to be a quid pro quo. So if I'm being paid to speak, then I'm never going to sell from stage. If I'm doing it for free, then, buy my book or join my mastermind group, or there's got to be an opportunity. So do you make it clear that we'll speak for free, you'll like what we have to share, but at some point we're going to offer our services from stage? Do you do that?
I think because it's such a new industry and it's hyper competitive. We're building a brand and we're building a goodwill in the industries. So by doing that, it's quid pro quo.
Your Latin's not as good as mine, but that's okay. I've been, I did it in year 7.
It's one of those things that you're recognised in the industry, and it's getting to being at the front spot. It has that tangible benefit that you're there to be called upon. We get phone calls from clients just calling up and asking for advice, or even possible prospective clients will phone up and say, we're thinking about doing this. It's a project. It might be a project or it might not. How would you go about it? And we'll provide that advice, no problem at all. We've worked with organisations to help them bring up scope and spec for tender documentation. Now, we've done that free of charge. We'll have to then bid on that. We're in a good position to bid on that at a later stage, but there's no guarantee that we're actually going to win that. In fact, I think on that occasion we didn't, which is, anyway, life goes on.
But one of the, I'd be interested to know whether you like the idea of this strategy I'm going to share with you. A number of my speaker colleagues will, at the end of their keynote, put a URL up on the screen, which they may have even bought. It may be specific to the conference, so it might be like refrigerator conference ebook.com.au or whatever it is. And when they go to that, that's just a redirect onto a landing page on your website where you offer them some additional value, maybe a set of videos explaining your knowledge further, or it might be an ebook or whatever it is, in exchange for an email address. And off the back of that, these speakers are building big databases that allow them to have then an ongoing conversation with the people that were in the room. Does that sit comfortably with you?
It does. We put our contact details at the end of the presentation, and the presentation invariably gets PDF'd and sent out to the participants there anyway. So we do get links, but that's an interesting way of doing it, is putting a separate landing page.
Well, and it works because it's personalised too, because it's a URL that's personal to that conference, and secondly, when they go to the landing page, it's generally been personalised very simply, just with maybe the logo of the conference or the name of the industry that the conference had, just so people feel as though there's a connection between what they saw on stage and what they're seeing on the landing page. So you can have that one for free. Next idea charged. How do you embed yourself then, James, in the conference beyond appearing on the app or in the booklet, in the agenda as a speaker? Do you generally take a stand at an expo, or what? How else do you sort of make sure that you've got good coverage?
Yes, so we don't always, but it depends on which sponsorships are available and who's doing what at the time. So we have, for example, there's a conference coming up in a few weeks' time where we're sponsoring the flash drives. So we'll have our logo on the flash drives. Where there's another one coming up where we'll take a booth And the booth is quite a good thing. We did a booth at one conference, and that probably returned about $150,000 worth of inquiries just on that one day. So, sometimes it's worth taking a booth, but we basically look at each conference in isolation and see what the opportunities might be and how much cash investment we might be interested in putting into it.
We're talking to James Rennie. He is the co-founder of the drone business AUAV, which stands for Australian Unmanned Aerial Vehicles. You happy with your business name, James?
Yes. Yeah. UAV, Unmanned Aerial Vehicle, was the sort of the name that was coined at the time, so we managed to pick that one up. But subsequently, everyone seems to be moving to drone. So, we'll see how we go and persevere. We'll persevere with obviously the business name, but we may do a bit of a rebrand later on in the year.
The old rebrand, hey? Always a stressful time of a business's life. Now, you, off the back of this conference, established yourself as an authority, speaking at a lot of conferences, 27 last year. How many do you think you'll do this year?
They're racking up already, so we're coming into conference season.
Yes.
We've got quite a few lined up in the pipeline. As I say, I've done a couple over the last 2 weeks. So conference season tends to run from sort of August through to October. So we've got a few booked in there too.
Just out of interest, just back to the paid thing, you're not being paid. Are you covering your own expenses, or are you at least getting those covered by the conference organiser?
Sometimes we cover them ourselves, but most times we get them covered. So for last week, for example, that trip was paid for by the conference organisers.
Now, off the back of that, you had some incredible media coverage, as you mentioned, 2 full pages in the Australian newspaper. But the one I'm particularly interested to understand is the highest read article in the Wall Street Journal on one day. Yes. How did that article come about, and why was it the highest read?
It came about because of a conference presentation. So I was speaking at the National Drones Conference last year, so Drone Congress. And the conference, in the audience of the conference was a writer from the Wall Street Journal, and he approached me afterwards and asked me if I was interested in being involved in an article in the Wall Street Journal. So, of course, I said yes, and it sort of went from there, really.
And what made it the most highest read article? I mean, it's a fairly niche topic.
It is a niche topic, and wedge-tailed eagles, our delightful Australian fauna, do have a tendency to smash up our aircraft, or at least try to. And so it was really a story about how Australian wildlife is combating drones. And it turns out that people are not massive fans of drones at the moment, and they're quite happy to see them broken by eagles, judging by all the responses to that article. But anyway, it was a Wall Street Journal, so it's not one to be sneezed at.
No, absolutely not. I do want to talk to you just before we finish about the future of drone technology, but right now I just want to say they are bloody noisy and they are very annoying when you're at the beach. But
I support you 100% in that. We're trying not to do jobs around urban areas, mainly because there's a fair bit of pushback at the moment on drones. So most of our work is out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, okay. One last marketing tactic that you guys employ, you've got a quarterly newsletter that goes out to 2,000 prospects, and you say you've got a high open rate and very well read. First of all, how have you built a database of 2,000 prospects, and why is it so? Why is your newsletter so well received?
We have people signing up through our website mostly. So we get a few people basically a day signing up to our newsletter, and they come from all walks of life. But the majority of the feedback we get is it's short, informative, light, and it's really about the industry it's about the industry as a whole, rather than just look what we've done, aren't we amazing? So it's really about trying to build the industry and make people understand, or allow people to understand the potential things that the industry the drone industry can
right. Well, I can tell you what. I mean, I'm looking at your website now. If you made it easy to sign up to your newsletter, I reckon you might have 20,000 on your database, and not 2. I can't find out where to register.
Oh, there should be a massive, great big button on the front page.
Well, I might be. Oh, it is. It wouldn't say massive. There you go. Subscribe to our newsletter. As my wife often says, James, it's right in front of your nose.
We'll make it red next time.
Make it red or so. I think. Well, I probably would test. I really would test that. Because it sort of gets lost in amongst all the other things. Tell me, future of drone technology, where's it heading?
I'm just one step back onto the newsletter, one of the most read articles on the newsletter, which has been a regular, is it sort of comes from the absolute shocker of the week, which is the OH&S side of things, but it's called Dodgy Operator of the Month.
I love it.
So we've found someone who's done something particularly ridiculous over the previous periods, put it in there as Dodgy Operator of the Month with a bit of a learning behind it. So it's about, again, trying to be educational. It's like, well, why was this dodgy? What were they doing? What were the safety things that were breached? So really pushing that safety factor as well.
How are you researching this kind of stuff? Do you have someone scouring the internet and Reddit and all those other websites that share that kind of stuff?
If we have a whole bunch of staff who are completely obsessed by drones. So,
yeah, right.
Everyone's scouring everything all the time, and if it's happened somewhere, chances are we'll find out about it pretty soon.
Love it. So, future of drone technology. I've seen one video where Amazon, I still don't know whether this is urban myth or real, but I have seen the video where Amazon are delivering parcels to your driveway by drone.
Yes. Drone deliveries is an interesting space. If you'd asked me 3 years ago, I'd have said, and I think I did say in a few of our newsletters, that this is not going to happen anytime soon. It seems to be happening a lot faster than I anticipated. So is it going to happen? Maybe. Probably. Zipline are doing some amazing work in Africa, delivering blood products and medication. So I can see that being that working really well. In Australia, there are a few other challenges. Aforementioned wedge-tailed eagle being one. So if you send something out beyond visual line of sight and it's not eagle-proof, it probably won't make it.
Wow. I just can't picture, because between flying cars, and I saw something on the news only last week where a crowd out of Seattle or somewhere had registered what looked to be like the most likely contender for a real flying car that I've seen. I mean, flying cars have been around for decades, haven't they, in terms of their thinking, but conceptually. But so we're going to have flying cars in the air. We're going to have drones in the air. It just seems to me it's just going to be a very, very busy sky and just a whole lot of things flying out of it as they crash into each other.
There's been a lot of investment in the space of how to get basically an air traffic control system for all these drones. So there's an awful lot of venture capital money at the moment going into developing sort of a drone airspace management style system.
So do you think it's realistic to say, what are we talking, 5, 10, 20 years for the sky to be full of things?
I would say 20 years almost certainly, because things are moving relatively quickly. It'll come down to whether the technology is safe enough and the regulators are comfortable enough with it happening. I think the technology can be developed, but there's still a lot of politics there and a lot of, if we think there's pushback at the moment with things buzzing over the beach. Imagine the pushback when there are drones up in the air buzzing all over everybody's houses. So it'll be a long and drawn out process, I believe.
Why do they have to be so noisy? And I will group drones in with leaf blowers. I think leaf blowers are a scourge on man. I don't understand why someone hasn't invented a silent leaf blower, and why can't someone invent a silent drone?
They are getting a lot quieter, I have to say. A lot of the fixed wing drones that we use, so probably a large proportion of our business is using fixed wing aircraft. So basically, rather than the quadcopter type DJI things that you generally see around the place, our fixed wing aircraft can cover much larger areas and capture the data more efficiently and almost silently as well. So that makes a bit of a difference.
Well, it's exciting times. I'm a little bit nervous about them, but exciting times nonetheless. One thing that I realised, James, just to go back before we finish, in regards to your marketing, you are again positioning yourself as an authority by reaching out to podcasters like myself. I mean, you emailed me, told me about what you're doing and suggested an interview would be a good idea. Is that another strategy that you're employing in the business?
It is partly. So it's really about being out there and trying to get that sort of brand awareness out. But we had another podcast a few weeks back, which is what's made me think about your podcast, actually. We did one for the Triple M network. And I suddenly thought, well, I've been listening to your podcast and found that very useful. So maybe give you a call and see if you'd be interested in a chat.
Good on you. Well, hopefully it leads to business. People, anyone listening who's interested in having a survey of sorts done by drone, you can go to auav.com.au and tell them Timbo sent you. James, interesting chat, mate, and I love your approach to marketing. Well done.
No worries. Thank you very much, and thank you for the great podcast.
Well, there you go, team. Australian Unmanned Aerial Vehicles, James Rennie. What a great marketing strategy. Coming up, I share my top 3 attention grabbers from that fireside chat with James. Plus, I'll share some more feedback from what's turning out to be quite a controversial little episode. Cash flow in business is everything, right? That's why I'm excited to introduce you to Prosper, Australia's #1 online lender to Aussie small businesses. But don't take my word for it. Small business owner Nioli Scobie of Truly Tea won the contract to supply the Opera House and needed to quickly ship tens of thousands of tea bags and 2 tonnes of loose leaf tea. Where was she going to get the money for that?
Well, I already supplied part of the Opera House, and then they offered me inside the Opera House, which is a very big deal, and I had to have a lot of stock on hand. They place an order, they want it the next day, and I wasn't going to say no to them. I'd knocked back too many opportunities in the past, so I phoned up a finance guy I trusted. He said, look, there's a new player on the market, Prosper, give them a call. I gave them a call, and within 24 hours, I had the money in the bank.
Prosper, Prospa. That's where she got the money. Apply online in 10 minutes to borrow up to $250,000. Call 1300 882 867 or visit prosper.com/Timbo. Now, my top 3 attention grabbers from my chat with James Rennie, thanks to Prosper and Design Crowd. Attention grabber number 1. I think James's conference speaking strategy is simple and brilliant, and I'd love you to adopt it. So here's my challenge to you. Go ahead and write a script for a 15-minute presentation that you know would be of benefit to your prospects. Then go ahead and create a slide deck that supports your script. Practice it 20 times. Yeah, 20, maybe 30. Then find a conference that you'd love to speak at and get a spot on the stage. Now, I know that seems scary, but I'd love you to try it. Do it once. What do they say? Magic happens outside your comfort zone. Attention grabber number 2. I love how James is also embedding himself in the conferences that he speaks at. Sometimes taking an expo booth, other times sponsoring items like the memory stick. You know, speaking from stage is one thing. Being part of the overall conference experience is absolutely best practice. And attention grabber number 3. I loved the dodgy operator of the month idea that he includes in each newsletter. You know, sometimes we forget that as business owners and marketers, we must entertain as well as educate and be helpful. That's what grabbed my attention. I'd really love to know what grabbed yours. It's been a bit quiet on the old commenting space on the show notes. So if you've got something to share, head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/417 and let me know your thoughts. Now, you may remember 3 episodes ago, episode 414, I interviewed Stephanie and Laura, who are Instagram rock stars. They have a combined following of 1.4 million followers, and they have made a variety of businesses from that following. And I wanted to know how they did it, why they did it, and why we all can't do it. They really were having a crack. And I got some constructive negative feedback from a listener, which I shared the following week, who thought, because one of the things with Stephanie and Laura, and I didn't make a big thing of it in the interview, but if you go to their Instagram, they're beautiful girls. They share their bodies and they're very healthy living. They have a brand called Kick Girls, KICgirls.com, which stands for Keep It Cleaner. So they're into clean living, and it's quite their Instagrams are quite provocative. But I didn't make a big thing of it in the interview because I want to focus on what businesses they'd created from their Instagram. So got a bit of negative feedback from that. That's cool. But now I've got some positive feedback from Ryan Speak of automatellyhq.com. Now, he says, "Hey, Timbo, I wanted to provide an alternate view to the listener feedback that you read out on your last episode. I was initially outraged when I heard the feedback, And it's lucky you didn't read out his or her name, because I have no doubt that your loyal listeners would have launched a Taylor Swift-esque Twitter storm in response to the comments from listener X. That'd be fun. Get a bit of, bit of coverage. Now, not every episode will resonate with all your listeners all the time, and that's okay. That's absolutely true, Ryan, and I'm cool with that. I reckon anyone who has an interest in social media marketing would have loved that episode, says Ryan. It was full of marketing gold and inspiration. I, for one, wish I was more business-minded at the tender age of 24, so well done, ladies. Couldn't agree more. Ryan goes on to say, for me, it was fascinating to get some insight into the mysterious world of social influencing. Listener X saw tits and ass, but he clearly missed the other angle, which was how a business owner might be able to leverage social influencer marketing to benefit his or her business. And if you still can't get past the tits and ass, says Ryan, then look at it this way. Their body is their product, but it's their lifestyle that is their brand. And as the girl said, that branding must be consistent to be successful. Very well put. They have mastered personal branding with a positive and healthy mindset to boot. They are inspirational young women, and I can only hope that my daughters grow up to be as well balanced and driven as Laura and Stephanie. Rant over. Keep up the good work, Timbo. Hey, thanks, Ryan. Ryan also goes on to share some ideas about how I could put a fire under my Instagram account, it's the one account that I don't do much with. There's a Facebook for Small Business Big Marketing. There's a Twitter. There's a LinkedIn. But I will start getting Instagram underway, Ryan, and your ideas are absolutely fantastic. So, buddy, thank you for taking the time to feedback. Hooly dooly, you and I cover some serious marketing ground in this show. Hey, do you remember the episode where we caught up with Melissa Maker, who'd managed to get one of the Modern Family stars to appear in her marketing for free? Or what about the episode with Platinum Electricians franchisor Josh Nichols, whose 21-step customer mantra proved to be a game changer in an industry not known for its customer service? Hello to all you Sparkies and tradies out there. I'll include links to both those episodes over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/417, where you'll also find hundreds more inspiring interviews, or you can subscribe free on iTunes or your favourite podcast app. Hey, be sure to check out Design Crowd if you need any marketing materials designed. Anything. T-shirts, merch, logos, stationery, websites, banners, signage, whatever. Head over to designcrowd.com/Timbo and you'll get $100 off your brief, which will make it exceptionally inexpensive. And a big thank you to Prosper, Australia's #1 online lender to small businesses. If you need some dough real quick to finance that next big idea, then check them out at prospa, prospa.com/Timbo. And if you love the Small Business Big Marketing Show, and why wouldn't you? Then let another business owner know about it by grabbing their phone and downloading it for them. Please do that once a day for the next year. Until next week, I'm Timbo Reid. Thanks for tuning in. May your marketing be the best marketing. Bye for now.